of this video is to talk you through and kind of model the thinking that a teacher might use in thinking about assessment. So when we talk about assessment, we're talking about uh, knowing what our students know, knowing what they're able to do, right? And then kind of responding to it. And we use assessment throughout a lesson to kind of progress to an endpoint. Not that education really has an endpoint, but so that we're producing or moving toward kind of an end goal where we can mark a student as, yes, they've got it. Yeah, they can do the thing. Okay. Um, so I'm going to model this by thinking through kind of a silly thing. We're going to talk about creating cookie sandwiches, right? So you think about like an Oreo, and it is, a cookie and some icing and a cookie. But you can make them with homemade stuff, so that's wonderful. We're going to keep it real simple, though. All right, so students will be able to. I want to think about learning goals. This has always got to be your starting point. Think about your learning goals, right? And the learning goal is we want students to be able to create a cookie sandwich. So make, a cookie sandwich, right? So students would be able, will know, to know this, they need to know the parts and order of construction of cookie sandwich, and they might need to know spreading technique, and they might need to know safety rules or something like that, right? So what are the things they need to know? What are the things that they need to be able to do? I always start over here because in English language arts, we're very, very reliant or very, very focused on skills, right? It's a very much skill-based curriculum, right? But there's knowledge also that kind of subsumes the abilities that we're trying to help them develop and grow. Okay, now you should always go from here essentially down to the assignment. The assignment being, let's clarify this. This is the, you may use the term performance task, call it an assignment, whatever you want to call it. It's the thing that comes at the end of the lesson, whether it's a 1-day lesson or a 7-day lesson or whatever. It's a thing that comes at the end. It's a thing that the student does independently to demonstrate that they can, in fact, make a cookie sandwich with that knowledge behind them, right? So the assignment would probably, in this case, be real simple. Construct a cookie sandwich, right? So we would write out whatever the assignment is. In English language arts, it's probably going to be writing something, an essay, a paragraph, whatever, producing a video or podcast, whatever it might be. It usually deals with using language to communicate, produce a thing, right? And that should really be across the board. We're always thinking about how do we use language. But in this case, we're just constructing a cookie sandwich. All right, I'm going to skip over this stuff and talk a little bit more, a little bit about kind of what gets us to this point, right? So when we think about instruction, we got to think about, well, how are we going to break down a student who doesn't know how to make a cookie sandwich, right? How are we going to get them to that point? Usually that's through a series of learning activities. That's not what our focus is today because we're really focused on assessment. But we don't want to just go straight into creating a cookie sandwich, right? We've got to think through, what do they need to know first? What do they need to know second? What do they need to know third? Whatever. And that could be 7 things or 12 things or 2 things or whatever. So the first part of this might be that you're doing a PowerPoint lesson on where you're doing a little bit of lecture on the construction of cookie sandwiches. And then the assessment prompt may be a multiple choice quiz, or maybe even not a quiz. One of the things that's really great to do is if you have like little, you can get cut out whiteboards or just laminate cardboard or folders and give students dry erase markers, and then they could just write their answers on those, hold them up, and then you can do a really quick class assessment and see who's got it, who doesn't. Does the whole class kind of mixed on whatever? So you could ask questions about, which list is the contains the correct parts of a cookie sandwich in the right order or something like that, right? So that might be the first part. Okay, and then you might say, okay, well, the next step is, now that we know all those parts, now we need to know how to properly spread the icing on the bottom cookie. And so it might be like some instruction and demonstration maybe about, oh, which knife do I choose, and how do I swirl, and how thick do I make it, and how do I avoid making a big mess. And you might go through those things. And then the assessment prompt might be that you might use collaborative pairs. And you might have to have each partner demonstrate for partner the proper technique. And you might have the other partner check off on a checklist that they did each of the things right, like chose the right knife, like they didn't choose the sharp stabby one, they chose the butter knife that would be good for spreading, and that they use the side of the icing thing to take the icing off. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So we think about, like, what are those steps of assessment that are going to tell us, okay, we're ready to go on before we make cookie cake or icing cookies, cookie sandwiches, right? What are the things that we need to make sure that they can do? Because this last thing is really where they're demonstrating solo that they can actually do the thing, so we can send them out in the world, right? So anyway, there may be more learning activities and assessment prompts along the way, but we would be checking through what we call formative assessment here, checking along the way, and then adapting when they don't get things, so that here we can say, okay, I think everybody's ready. Here are your materials, construct a cookie sandwich. Boom, and then everybody eats and they're happy. All right, so that's the idea. You go from learning goals, what they will know, what they'll be able to do, down to the assignment, and then you think through the learning activities and how are you going to do formative assessment along the way. All right, so that's it. Good luck. Talk to you later.